Welcome to Everybody Studios. This is Everybody in Charlotte, a series of 15-minute conversations highlighting the people of Charlotte making a difference. Juli Ghazi, welcome to Everybody Studios.
Hi. Thanks for having me.
You got it. Very excited to have you in. I like to start by talking about how we know each other.
Yeah.
And I thought about this morning, and I was trying to think about the first time that I ever, met you, and I don't know if you remember. Do you?
I think I do. We're sharing the same memory. It's like we mind meld right here.
Well, who goes first?
Okay, I'll tell you my memory.
All right, what's yours?
And see if it... So my first memory, I was thinking about it too, and I believe that I came into Pure Pizza on Central one day. I just finished up a yoga class at Yoga One, so I was hot and sweaty and in yoga clothes. And I walked in and I started clearing tables when I got in there.
This is my memory too.
Okay, good.
Yep.
All right, we were
This
mind
is it.
melding.
This is when
I
we
love
met.
it. Yes.
Yep.
And I remember you called me over and you said, "Are you the owner?" And I was like thinking, do I look like the owner right now? But you just said, it was the way you said you carry yourself like the owner. And I was like, well, thank you. And yes, I am. I don't normally like to be introduced or, I don't like being introduced or having that sort of title in a lot of ways with the general public because...
What, owner?
Yeah, because people treat you differently.
Sure.
And I'm like, it's pizza, people. Come on. I don't have backstage passes or a suite at the Panthers games.
Right.
Like, it's pizza. Stop acting like this is, I'm benefiting you in some sort of way by saying you know the owner. And so to the extent that, here's a funny story.
That's hilarious.
Even with the employees, it was funny. I was sitting there one day working and I was on the computer and there was a discussion happening between the front of the house manager and one of the servers. And the server was really pushing back on the manager in a way that she stopped and said, "I can't believe you're acting this way in front of the owner." She's like, "Who's the owner?" And she said, "Julie." And she said, "I thought she was the marketing person." And I looked up from my computer. I was like, "I am." And I just kept going back to my work. I was like, yeah.
So good.
Yeah, it was good.
In front of
yeah.
the big bad owner.
I know.
The master.
Yeah,
Oh,
I like maneuvering behind the scenes.
Understood.
A lot better.
Understood. That's good. Yeah, my memory too.
Yeah, that was a long time ago.
That was a long time ago. And since then, I think we've just crossed paths a few times.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so my first question for you, Julie, which is
Yes.
kind of playful,
Okay.
is I like for my guests to share a time, first one that comes to mind, where you laughed the hardest you've ever laughed.
Laugh the hardest I've ever laughed. There are too many of those.
Exactly.
Even.
So that implies not ever, because there would be one of those. So let's just tell a story, a time, whatever comes to mind when I say the hardest you've ever laughed. Yep. No problem.
Okay, so this goes more into the category of laughter as play, right? Like when we find humor in things, that there's an opportunity to play. And one of the things that I've really been allowing myself, especially since the onset of COVID, when life just got so serious, right, is how do I really drop into this more childlike expression of play? Because as adults, we're sort of dissuaded from that being accessible,
Play?
Play.
Yeah, just playtime. Yeah.
So my
Gotta be
dog,
serious.
I know, and I'm
Productive.
so tired of being serious and grinding. And so my dog, over the years, he's been inviting me into his world, right?
Ooh.
And it's been a long, slow, patient process of his. And so several months ago, he and I were in the backyard, and he loves to throw the ball. And I was sitting in the grass, and I popped up on all fours, and I started like growling at him, like, arr, arr, and he got all excited, right? And he started jumping around. I was like, oh, I'm onto something. So I'm on all fours, and I'm literally like chasing him around the yard, and I'm growling, and he's barking at me, and we're playing. Well, all of a sudden, I have these really cool neighbors next to me, and they have these 3 little boys, and all of a sudden, the boys are all up looking over the fence, and they're like, Julie, what are you doing? I was like, well, exactly. I was like, well, Jax actually likes me to play like a dog with him. So I'm playing with Jax, and they're like, can we come play with you? So next thing you know, they're all 4 of us, you know, in the backyard. We're all running around barking, growling. Jax is like having the best day of his entire dog life. And so, yeah, I would say
That is so beautiful.
it was so fun.
Oh my God.
So it's an ongoing thing now. It happens almost on a near daily basis.
I love it. You ready to turn into a dog?
Exactly.
That is so good. God, that was a good one. That was unique. Man, that makes me think about my dog. I do a lot of that as well. I haven't done it in the backyard yet. Maybe I need to go out into a field and do it.
It's so fun. Well, the thing that really dawned on me is that, you know, our pets, like, we've brought them into our human experience.
Yeah.
So they have been, they've been taken out of their natural world.
Domesticated, yep.
And so for me to go into his world and play with him, like, it has been such a gift for both of us.
That is so cool. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. Yeah, I get on the floor and you know, will bite at my dog's neck and like put a rope in my mouth and tug at it. You know, it's so fun. Awesome. All right. So next question is, what would you consider to be your superpower?
My superpower. I see things.
Okay.
I see things, whether it is in people or possibilities. There's always been this ability that I've had of, it's almost like a blueprint that comes to mind.
Mm-hmm.
And so if it's a person, it's like the blueprint of their higher selves.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's possibility, whether it was birthing Pure Pizza or birthing Khali Yoga Center, or now in this space where I'm birthing this new place, you know, where yoga and food and music are all coming together. I see it and I feel it. It's a very experiential thing in my body. And so what I've had to learn how to do is, in the past, it would be easy to be like, oh, and you should do this and you should do that, and really like trying to push people out of their current version of themselves into what I see as their higher version of themselves. And so the lessons have been over this last decade or so of really being with what is while also, you know, moving towards what is becoming. So it's a very it's a very soft place to be. And the creative experience on the what I create side, the blueprints that I see of things that I'm creating are they're high growth periods for me. I don't always like it, but at the same time too, I know that in order to get from here to there,
you gotta go through,
that
right?
thing that I see, there is a long portal that I've got to travel through. So yeah, so I definitely see things that are not yet in this visible world.
Okay. Very eloquently put. Of course, I would go into a rabbit hole with this, but we have to be conscious of time. But I do have a question.
Yeah.
Do you see things that perhaps would be warning signals?
There have definitely been times where I don't necessarily perceive, like, if somebody's going to get into a car accident,
right?
And things like that.
No,
like, it's
not predicting the future.
No, I'm definitely not predicting the future. But most definitely, you know, one of the things that helped me to see is that I'm very attuned to patterns, very attuned to them. It all started, my first addiction other than alcohol were video games when I was a kid. And what I learned at 9 years old when I'm like killing it on the Atari is that everything is just
Killing
basically
it.
learning a pattern. And once I learn
That's
the
right.
pattern, then I can conquer the board. I
Sure,
can,
like
you
Miss
know,
Pac-Man and all
without
that.
a
Like,
doubt.
I mean, you know the
Yes.
pattern. Yep.
So in the pattern, I pick up on people's energy and people's patterns. And so it can be a foretelling in a lot of ways because we aren't always attuned to our own patterns, right?
No, we're not.
And so in that way, yes, then I can be like, hey, here we are, you know,
Yeah.
in this space again. And, or, yeah, so I don't know if that quite answers the question.
It does, and I would love to hear it expanded on a touch more in the sense that when I say warning signal, the way that you explained it before was a little, when you said blueprint, it sounded very positive.
Mhm.
So I'm wondering if you're able to, when you see this kind of, you know, blueprint, is there constructive? Is it constructive? Like, can you weed out what? Is it forming something that you want it to be, which requires critical thinking, or do you just see it a certain way? Does that make sense?
Yes, let me see if I understand you correctly. It's not all positive.
That's kind of my
Definitely.
question.
Right.
Is
Yes,
it all
it's definitely.
optimistic? You know, it's
Now,
realistic.
It is a combination of both. Now, have you
Which is
studied Enneagram? Enneagram?
I know it. I don't know it fully,
Okay. All right.
but I do know what Enneagrams are.
I love it's been a spiritual growth tool of mine for a long time. And so I am a hardcore 7 on the Enneagram. And so part of that is the wanting to see life from all the positive possibilities.
Yeah.
And so where landing in addiction, I'm coming up on my 11th year, June 6th. Yes. So I'm just like a week and a half from
Wow.
it. What that allowed me to do was finally to drop in through the trap doors of the darkness of life that I had just tried for decades not to experience. And now the deep, dark, murky underwaters are really a place of deep comfort for me because there's so much meaning. So, yes, what I see is more realistic, and then it helps me to fine tune the rudder right now so that I don't steer things completely off, you know, off the cliff. So yes, it is a lot more realistic than it was in the first part of my life because I wanted to shun away anything that felt negative.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Got it.
Yeah.
I totally get it now. Very cool. Offline, are you doing medicinal retreats and that kind of stuff?
Yeah. I do. I do explore with plant medicine. So I have not been called to do any big journeys in quite some time. It's probably been a year and a half at least. And much of that is because where I am in my own life, a lot of these plant medicines can become experiences into the shadow world. And I love shadow work. I love it. But I have not felt that my psyche and my body needs to undergo the kind of process through plant medicine. I'm in a very gentle, soft, tender space. My little animal body is like, we've been through so much.
Let's just enjoy
Let's
for a
just
little bit.
enjoy because the hard times come.
without
Right.
intention. Yeah.
So I've actually, so the plant medicines that I've been experiencing over this last year are more grandfather medicines. The grandmother, the mother medicines like ayahuasca and mushrooms can be, they're beautiful. And the cactus medicine, the grandfather medicines have been so, they've been so pleasurable from an awareness standpoint of being in that space of all that is. And it's also been a really beautiful place of my own integration of divine masculine energies and my own relationship with, with patriarchy, with with male bodies, with
Mm-hmm.
coming into that space of deep understanding that the system that we've been forced to grow up in for the last 5,000 years of patriarchy has done as much harm to men as it has done to, others on the planet.
Sure.
And so there's a deep healing that is, I believe, occurring
Mm-hmm.
as we are speaking, that includes the healing of male bodies, not the exclusion of and the blaming and shaming. So
Well, you're a little further along than a lot of people, Julie.
I don't know where I am. I'm just here.
Well, thank you for saying that because, as a man, as a white man,
Yeah.
it's perceived that way a lot.
Yeah.
And, I educate as much as I can and having my own experiences of shadows and darkness have led me to be super introspectful and open and honest. So I don't fight things like a lot of men who may have not been down those roads do. And so when I get met with the shaming, the your fault stuff, it hurts.
Oh yeah.
And while I know that there's things I do that are programmed, they're not intentional.
No. Well, the system itself is designed, and I wish that more humans, especially in American culture, could objectively take a look at the fact that the system is designed to oppress everyone, and that's
Right.
not a popular statement.
Yeah.
And that as long as we perceive ourselves as being oppressed, we are oppressed because we've created our own mental prison. And so if I'm oppressed, well then, my oppression is deeper and more, more hurtful than your oppression. So we live in a culture now of who's the most oppressed. Right?
Right.
And so my oppression has nothing to do with me and my choices or my inability to deconstruct my belief systems or to do my shadow work. That's the kind of culture we live in that's blasted all over social media is that it's not my fault. I don't have work to do. You need to do the work to make me feel better. And I say, fuck all of that. That needs to die. Like that kind of belief system needs to die because we're here to all do our own work. And in the work, we become liberated. And so in that liberation, there's a deep reality of the program we live in under this type of culture, this patriarchy culture, is designed to keep us all separate, which what I learned in hitting bottom in addiction is separation is the biggest lie. We are not separated. We are one big, living, breathing community organism. And so if I heal, then it gives permission for people around me to heal. And if you heal, and it just becomes this mycelium effect, that we all start to heal. Why? Because we chose to. Not because we're forcing, blaming, and shaming somebody else to do the work for me.
Right. Or to accept responsibility for
Right.
my woes. Yeah.
Right.
So the programming, the way that I've always kind of understood it is designed to control.
Yeah.
Right. And I mean, take that as far back as I don't want to piss anybody off, but certain organized secular, all those spaces where there is good and there is order, because we are evolved survivalists, right? And sometimes surviving is ugly.
Yeah.
So there is order to be made in a civilized society, but what that looks like now has just evolved into control. And so sounds like what you were saying was, so it's essentially the freedom of self and the finding oneself in order to not be controlled is against everything we've learned and know. And so how do you fight that, and how do you ripple effect that out into a world that is just so the current is so against you.
I know. So we do live in a system where all of the institutions have been designed to teach us that we cannot trust ourselves. We have to trust the institution. Banks say, you don't know what to do with money. Give us your money. You know, the school system, the university systems, you don't know how to learn. Come in and we'll indoctrinate you. The healthcare system, you don't know how to take care of your body. You know, everything, the government, you don't know how to be civilized people. Let us create all the rules. So even churches, you don't know God. You need to come in here and we're going to teach you the experience of God. So everything is designed to teach us to not trust ourselves. Trusting ourselves is a very divine feminine aspect because the intuitiveness, our gut, right? Our inner knowing, the place inside of us that is never changing, like that which is our soul. That is not going to come from a message on a TikTok, right? Or from, you know, the corporation that you work for, right?
Yeah.
None of these
The
things.
little HR newsletter is not going to.
No, nothing is going
Open your
to
eyes.
encourage you to say, hey, sit still for a little while and see what your spiritual womb says. Sit still for a little while and see what your heart feels, right? We're taught to live in our brain, and it's one of the downfalls of the kind of culture we live in because everything, we have cut our body off from our head. So we live in our heads. And so we forget about our heart. We forget about our spiritual womb. We completely negate the body in and of itself. I don't feel good. There's a pill for that. I'm feeling uncomfortable. Well, let me go distract myself with scrolling on Instagram for 5 hours, right? Like everything is taught to not look inward. And so the only way, I believe, that we can come into a deeper authenticity of who I am is by going in and by listening and getting quiet and getting still. But we're overscheduled. We are overstimulated. You know, we have way too many options of everything, whether it's food or, you know, laundry sheets or, you know, things to watch on television. I mean, it's just an incessant amount of distraction. And the more we allow ourselves to be distracted, the more we're just going to be in a state of whatever the program tells me to do is what I'm going to do.
Yep.
And so it is, one of my teachers recently said that in order to get into the flow state of life, we each have our own individual stream, and it's like a salmon swimming upstream trying to get into it. But once you get there, you're there, and you're like, oh, I'm never leaving this place. It's not worth it. It's not worth it to be so wrapped up in the world that, no, because this is gentle. It's not easy.
No.
But
No.
even the not easy, though, is more gentle than when I'm fighting, trying to swim up the stream to get there. That's hard.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, and would you say that majority of, and I mean, we can hone in on American population or American society as opposed to the world, because I know it does differ, that not many people are finding flow states,
No.
right?
No.
I mean, the majority of people are, call it sheep, call it program, well, you know, whatever it is. We're just, they're,
It's hard.
and through history, I mean, most American people have just gone through the damn same thing over and over and over.
Yeah, I think it's why I keep going back to Costa Rica.
I'm guessing. And it's kind of where this question started was
Yeah.
with the plant medicine, and not that Costa Rica signifies that, but it just made me think that that was kind of the path you were on, and clearly it is.
Well, Costa Rica, what I've come to love, there are only 2 places in the world where I've experienced this, Iceland and Costa Rica. And it is an expansiveness of the mind of the people of that culture. And one of the unique things about Costa Rica is that Costa Rica earned its independence from the Spanish in the early 1800s. And so it never became a colony. It has been free and independent for nearly 250 years, right? Unlike a lot of other places that have been and are still under rule of the crown or, the French or the Spanish. We still have even, the U.S. We don't want to call Puerto Rico, but
Yeah.
even the U.S. has its own colonies, right? So Costa Rica has not been colonized in over 250 years. They also don't have an army. And so you don't have mothers sending their children off to war. And you don't have people worried about their borders being, infiltrated by people trying to storm and take over, right? So there's no war in the DNA of the people. In addition to that, there's such an integration of living with nature that they are nature. See, we've become so desensitized. We think a tree in a parking lot is nature, right?
Right, it's got gravel around
Right.
it.
We're like, oh, look at that. It's a tree. Yeah. Oh, there's a patch of grass, right?
Isn't that beautiful?
We don't, because we're being hoarded into living into cities. And, now we've got the new 15-minute cities coming online, so we can get to anywhere we want in 15 minutes. It's great. How many
How
trees
convenient.
and grass and sky and birds and squirrels and snakes and all of the things of nature. Like, we're so disassociated from all of that. And
Yeah.
so that's why I love going back there, because I get to be in a culture with people who have expanded minds that are not living in the, well, somebody looked at me weird at the grocery store, so now I am, and you are, and this is, and I'm going to go and make a TikTok video about how mean that person was and how, validated my feelings need to be, and it's just,
God.
I'm over it. I'm over
Oh.
it. And so there's an important piece, I believe, that is in the messiness of where this American victimization culture is right now, is that we're learning how to find our voice of, I'm done with accepting these things as being normalized. And we have to go through that. I think that there's a very important piece there is, we may not realize that we are being a victim, whether that's in our work or our families, our romantic relationships, what have you, right? And so when we come into like, whoa, this is wrong. Like, it's okay to be swimming in the like, shit, I'm a victim right here. Like, we need to go. It's an important part of the grief process. But the problem is we're staying in victim consciousness. And that I can't support, because as long as we stay in victim consciousness, then we're just going to have a bunch of people flinging their victim poo all over each other. And I'm not here to catch yours, not mine, right? So what has to happen is we've got to move beyond that into then what are the lessons? What's the wisdom then that I take out of and not only learn in my mind, but I embody in my body so I can walk around as a more sovereign, free human being on this planet. And that's what the people of Costa Rica are like. It's what the people of Iceland are like. It is so free and expansive, and I want more of that. Keep all this American victimized mentality to yourself. I want big, expansive, what can we do? How can we grow? How can we help? How can we be supportive? What are the networks that we can create that says, fuck all of this government overtaking this? More rules do not create a more civilized society. So, yeah, that's where I am in that space of take me to where the freedom is.
Yes. Golly.
So good.
I love it. I love it.
I know Costa Rica needs to hire me from their like
Yeah, they
their
do.
marketing team.
They do. Oh my
Their
God.
tourism marketing.
All right, so this conversation, I'm gonna throw that out. So the one thing I was trying to think of earlier when I got stuck was the connectedness of all of us and our souls and our inner workings and where we come from and our energy and all those things that connect us as living beings, and how the system, the program, the whatevers, ultimate goal is to
Yeah,
disconnect us.
totally.
And the phones and all the things that we have listed in this conversation are designed to disconnect us.
Yeah.
When you think about it like that, it's almost like, come on, humans, let's uprise.
Let's do it.
Right?
Yeah.
Because we're all one.
We really are, and it's scary to see how much we're being replaced. Like, I'm in the restaurant industry, and to watch how fast-moving humans are being eradicated out of the hospitality industry is alarming. I'm in the pizza category, and pizza in general, if I read about one more robot making a pizza,
Oh God.
I mean, I am just pizza kiosk. Let me go to a kiosk so
Oh.
a kiosk can make my pizza, right? Like all of the spaces that we're going into that are so heavily reliant on technology, and in a way, it's kind of sad, right?
Oh,
Because
not kind of.
I think
Super
about,
sad.
well, here's what I think about though. Like I think about, let's go back to like, I don't know, the 1500s, right?
Mm-hmm.
And where we didn't have cars, electricity, washing machines, you know, we were all growing our own food. It was very heavy labor for every human on the planet,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so, I mean, even going to the bathroom, right? You had chamber pots. You didn't have indoor
Yeah.
plumbing,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So this onset of the amazing just capacity of the human mind to be able to create and develop and to bring all of these conveniences into this modern world, it's not creating more peace and ease so that we can be like, I don't have to do dishes, the dishwasher is doing it, the washing machine is washing it, and now I'm just going to hang out in the backyard and play dog with my
No.
dog, right? No, we're
Right.
not, because we're
No.
filling it with more stuff to keep us busy and distracted. So that's why I think it's so
It's
sad.
gone too far.
It has. And so we're not allowing the technology to bring peace and ease into our life, where the technology is actually creating more disconnection
Disease. Yeah.
without.
Yeah.
And so as I'm watching this, takeover, you go into most banks nowadays, if you get a teller in a bank, you're lucky.
You're lucky.
You know,
Yeah,
I just
yeah.
switched from Bank of America to Fifth Third because I go into Bank of America, you can hardly find a human, or you have to set an appointment 3 weeks in advance. Like I walk into Fifth Third and like, hey, you want some coffee? Come on over here. Hey, Julie, they actually remember my name. I'm like,
Yeah.
yes, it's so good. Humans, we're humaning, we're humans.
Fifth Third, everybody. Remember that?
So I desire to have a place where people can come and remember how to be a human, because we're going to be looking at each other. We're going to be moving with each other. We're going to be dancing. We're going to be doing all the things that AI can't do with me.
There it
Yeah,
is.
so that's what it is. That's the big picture of the whole thing.
Well, what do you do there? Everything AI can't do.
Exactly.
Tagline.
Exactly.
God, that's beautiful, Julie.
Yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful.
Undergoing the shadow work uncovered so much about parts of my childhood that were really hard. My childhood was really hard. And, people might look at me and say, oh, she's da-da-da-da-da. Oh, she must be privileged,
Mm-hmm. People are going to say what they say.
I know, they are, And so this isn't a smear campaign on my family, but I had a very unhappy, very painful childhood. And one of the things that was painful about that was the lack of community. I'm grateful that my dad had a job, and yet that job required us to move very frequently. So I was in and out of schools, in and out of churches, in and out of cities, in and out of states, in and out of neighborhoods, and we didn't have the internet, email, cell phones to keep in touch. We were pen pals, but as kids, that might last like 2 letters, and then you've lost touch, you know?
Yep.
So what's been really interesting is to see how I opened up the first Pure Pizza in April of 2012, and then I hit rock bottom in addiction June 6th of 2012.
Oh,
and
okay.
so I had stepped out and stepping away from the typical corporate jobs and moving into something that I believed was a passion of mine. And what has evolved of that is wow, I've been able to create spaces for community in a city that, when I first moved here 24 years ago, was very clear it lacked community spaces. There's not a lot of salvaging of history. And so we lose out on connection to our history in the city. We lose out on spaces that are just real community spaces. Our communities are centered around breweries in this city.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And they're only now starting to include us sober people with like sparkling waters. Before it was like, there's an Igloo cooler, go fill up your Solo cup with their water over there, right?
That's right.
But yeah, like it's kind of sad to me that we don't have an influx of places where people can go. Like there are a lot of places, other cities, other countries where if you're by yourself, you can just drop into the city center. There's a big pedestrian area,
Hmm.
car-free zone, like it's just there's community that comes to just be, and we don't
Hmm.
have a lot of that. So it's been really exciting to see how this creation of community spaces, at Pure Pete's on Central for like 5 years, we had this big farmers market.
Yeah, I remember.
People still talk to me about their memories of that farmers market, Pat and Caleb and all the love that they put into it and all the vendors that came, and we had kids yoga and kids art classes and
Hmm.
and then even though I'd sold Khali Yoga, knowing that it's still here and people are going and they're breathing and they're moving and they're like dropping into themselves and creating all these kind of beautiful events. And then the barn now, I didn't birth it. It's been birthed out of community, but I've been a big part of the community that's been creating this. And so when I hear people come into the barn and they're like, oh my God, I found my people,
Hmm.
because we're not a yoga studio. It
Yeah.
is not a
Oh, I
yoga
know.
studio. It is a place where it is so cool to be weird,
Oh my God.
and so this becomes just that merging of both sides of my heart,
Hmm.
with the yoga, with the movement, the breath work. I'm a meditation teacher now.
Hmm.
And I'm on a death doula apprenticeship as well, which is really exciting.
Oh wow.
That's been,
Death doula.
yeah, yeah.
Power.
And I
Holy
just had an
moly.
opportunity to really to shepherd. Like I'm not looking for clients, but someone came into my world saying, "I heard that you are a practicing death doula,
Mm.
and I'd like to work with you." And I was like, "Whoa, that was such an honor."
Can you
Um,
explain what that is?
so it is. We're gonna get into another rabbit
Oh God.
hole.
All right, let's not do it because
It's just
we're gonna have
really
to
quickly.
wrap
It's
here
just
in a
really
second.
quickly. It
Okay.
is. It is the acknowledging death as a transitional portal to rebirth, whether it's in our physical or our egoic life, and how death is actually a really beautiful process if we allow it to be.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's helping people to, as I've helped myself,
Mm-hmm.
start to eliminate the fear around death and start to really embrace the beauty, the softness, the sweetness, and this rebirthing that happens through that death portal.
And are you referring literally to the passing of life,
Both ego
or
and
or
ego and life.
that's
Yeah.
what I, okay,
Yeah,
gotcha.
because egoic death can feel like you're dying. I
Sure.
know that from firsthand
Yes, I
experience
do too.
many times.
I
And
do too.
so now I embrace it as opposed to like, so I say all of that to get back on track with the fact that um, this becomes a merging of all the things, the food, the yoga, the bringing live music into this whole experience. And so the new location is on the plaza.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I bought a piece of land. It has a building. It is an older building. It's 100 years old, and I've been really trying to save it. And the general contractor the previous owners just did not take the care of this building the
Mm-hmm.
way that it needed to. So chances are it's going to come down, which hurts my heart. There's an existing Jamaican restaurant that's in it right now, and Kevin and I have become very good friends. And it was so fun because I turned the building down twice to look at it because it was owner occupied. I mean, it was a restaurant occupied. And then finally, Greg Godley, that I worked with, said, "Would you just please look at it? Because somebody's going to buy this building. And right now, do you want it to be you? Do you want to just go see what you see? Because you're going to see something." And I did, and I saw it, and it involved Kevin, the current owner. It took him a couple of months to really start to trust me. And then one day I said, "Would you like to hear what I see?" And he's like, "Yeah, man, yeah." And I have a very deep connection with Jamaica, very deep connection. So he and I very much have. I started a farm there many years ago. Like it's a very beautiful place. I love
Mm-hmm.
Jamaica. So I explained to him what I could see, and then he's like, all right, I'm gonna pray on this. I'm gonna get back to you. And then a couple weeks later, he's like, I'm in. And so we're doing a co-branded site. He's staying. He's not going anywhere.
No way.
It's like I'm so excited
God.
about all of it. Yeah, so it's going to be on the plaza. Time frame is
Is this next to Hattie's?
yeah,
Yeah,
right next to
the
Hattie's and
Jamaican-
Tip
yeah,
Top. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so he's going to stay in until we get to the point of construction. And it looks like that'll be like October. So my desire is to have the grand opening on 2/22/24 because for the last 3 years that's been a really significant big things have happened. I bought the building on 2/22 this year. We incorporated the barn into a 501c3 nonprofit on 2/22/22. So I mean, it just kind of I sold the yoga
Special
studio,
date.
you know,
Special date.
2/22,
Really?
21, like so many things have happened on that date that it's been really fabulous.
Is any of that intentional, or that just fell
No,
on those dates?
the only one that I was really intentional was with the closing of the building this past February. My attorney said, "What do you want the date to be?" And I was like, 2/22. Yeah, so it's
Wow.
so it's all been so that would be my desire is that we can reopen around then.
Okay.
Yeah. So I don't have any marketing. We're rebranding. It's going to be a new, updated, grown-up version of Pure Pizza. We're adding a bunch of stuff onto the menu, a lot more dinner entrees onto the menu. And yeah, it's going to have some really fun, exciting things to it. So.
Would you be open to nominating someone else to come sit in that chair?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'd like to nominate Jason Kears.
Okay.
Yeah, because it was really his curiosity that is what birthed the Big Love Yoga Barn. So I'd love for him to come in and talk to you.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Jason Kears.
Yeah, I can give you his info.
You've been called, Jason. Sounds good. Big Love Yoga Barn, I did a Men's Sacred Liberation in January, and we did our an event there one Sunday morning.
Yeah, ice bath at like 5 a.m., didn't you?
Actually, it was I do a lot of ice baths anyway, and I didn't do that one. I was ill and couldn't do it. But the weekend prior to that, we did a major breathing ceremony, and it was intense, man.
Yeah, Brian.
Yep.
EJ.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Brian and EJ, and then
Robert.
not Robert. Robert wasn't doing it then, but he is now. Anyway, somebody else.
Yeah.
But it was man, it was an experience for sure. Anyway, all right, Julie, can you leave me with 3 words to remember you by? Even though I will remember you by so many other things.
Okay, 3 words to remember me by. That would be joyful, possibility, and abundant.
Lovely.
Yeah, thank you.
Lovely.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. It was an honor to have you on. I loved learning all you're about and all you've got going. Very insightful, very inspiring.
Thank you.
And very eye-opening. I've got a lot to think about.
Thank you.
Thank you, Julie.
I'm Juli Ghazi, and I am everybody.